All right, well, why don't we get started? If everyone's reviewed the minutes, can I get a motion to approve?
We got
the minutes?
Is Paul all ready? Are we sure that Paul's ready to go? Thanks. You might just want to announce the meeting, what meeting it is, and who's here in case, we're doing this for the first time remotely. So we might want to make sure anybody watching from home knows exactly what's going on here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting. This is our first attempt at a full Zoom meeting, so hopefully we'll be able to get through it as efficiently as we usually do. So, first item on the agenda is the minutes. If I can get a motion to approve the minutes, please.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second it, John.
Okay. I'm going to do the vote by exception. So is anybody opposed to accepting? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the second item. So we're going to review some of the proposed documents. At our last meeting. We had started discussing the updated Economic Development Committee binder and went through each of the sections, and we had suggestions made regarding updating or revising our mission and vision, and also establishing a charter. There was never one that was formally created. I did talk with Bob Cutler. He said, it is not a requirement, but I think it is a great idea. And so if you want to pull up the first document, Paige, can you pull up the charter document?
Will do.
Okay. So we've got on your document, we have the Constitution of the Committee, which was presented by Heather for us to review. And I went through it and just made some minor tweaks in terms of the information that she had provided. I thought it was laid out well. One item that I did strike or change or make a suggestion is that the board may reorganize annually in May. Was one change, and the other change I'm suggesting that we consider is striking the line that says the chair will vote only in the event of a tie or when needed to establish a quorum. None of the other committees in town function in that manner. So, and I think just historically, the committee has really worked hard to come to consensus on the different projects that we have worked on. So if we ever found ourselves in that type of situation, I was thinking that, it would be important to hear both the pros and cons of whatever that issue was, to the full extent to whoever would be the deciding board in terms of whatever that action was around. So those are just some thoughts that I had on the creation of the charter. So I just wanted to ask for input from everyone around the table. I'll just do it by roll call again. Hang on one sec. John, Eva, do you have any comments you'd like to add or make?
In regard to the non-voting, you're not limiting the numbers. You're just saying members.
Right. We have voting members, right? Yeah. We have the non-voting members are ex officio members.
Right, but you haven't put any form of limit on the number that may attend.
We said that the committee shall be made up to 10 voting members appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, I'm just pointing out that, Lorraine, about there is not a limit on the number of non-voting that may participate.
So I'm not sure are you saying that's,
So there are 10 voting members, so there's a limit on the number of voting members, that's clear.
correct?
But in terms
Correct.
of the ex officio from Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and the Zoning Board, it doesn't say that there is a limit on the number of persons that can attend representing the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and Zoning Board.
I see what you're saying. So perhaps have something like was originally the number 1. So have non-voting, 1 each non-voting members from the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yes, you don't want to leave it open that an unlimited
Right.
number can attend on the part of those different functions.
Okay, thank you. Tom Murphy, any comments or?
No, not on this. Nope.
Okay. Mike Saig's not present. Mike Stanton?
I'll accept as amended.
Okay. Kurt?
I would accept as amended as well.
Okay. Catherine?
Same, I like it as amended.
Okay. Heather?
I'm fine with the amended too.
Okay. Input, is Leah on the call?
I am here.
Leah, any input?
I like John's feedback. I like how that was amended.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Okay. Kevin, is Kevin Weinfeld on the call? Okay. All right, so I'm just going to read it to make sure I have it correct then. The Foxboro Economic Development Committee, EDC, shall be made up of up to 10 voting members appointed by the Board of Selectmen, each serving a term of 3 years commencing in May. The committee will have 1 each non-voting ex officio members from the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Town employees may also be invited to participate as non-voting ex officio members on an ad hoc basis. The committee will elect a chair, vice chair, and clerk. The board may reorganize annually in May. The clerk or a designated town employee shall take all minutes and publish same in accordance with public records law. Sound right?
Yep.
Okay,
That
great.
move.
Thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the mission statement. In your packet, you received a document that had the original mission statement, which was authored by Sharon Wasson, which is really a combination of mission and vision. The current mission statement, which was adopted by our committee last September, one of the last times we met, and then a suggested revision to the adopted mission statement. So again, I just put up at the top a summary of what the mission statement is to represent. It's really a statement of where we are presently and why our committee exists. So what I wanted to ask Heather, if you could please comment just on the suggested revisions to the recently adopted statement, and then we could have discussion about that.
So that's the one down at the bottom that I presented at the last meeting. That's the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so pretty much all I did was try to take the 3 that we had, the one in the packet, the one on the website, and the one on the town's website, and just sort of combine them into one mission statement. And then the only thing I really added was the open space and recreation plan, because that wasn't approved yet when the other mission statements were done. It ties in so much with the master plan that I thought we should reference both.
Okay. All right. So I'll do it the same way. I'll start, John, Eva, any questions for Heather or comments on the revision?
So the essence of the last paragraph of the original mission, which was the committee's goal, we haven't stated what our goal is in this mission.
Right. So,
So what we said was to enhance the quality of life and prosperity in town. That was the broad statement which we had. What we've narrowed it down to is related to support and growth of businesses only.
So I think the mission is really how, what we are doing to implement the long-term vision, and the vision, what the phrase that you just used, you'll see on the next page, is actually part of what really comprises a part of a vision statement. So the vision is really, where we want to be in the future, and what we want to see for Foxboro. So I think we will address that in the vision statement discussion that we have.
Yes, but the point therefore comes to, Lorraine, well, we're talking about just the attraction, development, support and growth of businesses in town. That's what we're limiting ourselves to, just businesses. And I'm wondering whether, is that broad enough given what our goal was?
Okay. Any other comments?
Supporting smart economic growth in keeping with the master plan. It's just, I feel that the focus solely on businesses in that sentence is rather restrictive.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions for?
What if it was like business and housing attraction?
You got to remember too, like the mission statement is kind of like an elevator pitch. A typical mission statement is like 30 to 40 words. And, if you start to put too much in there, you're kind of narrowing your overall things you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea really with the mission statement is, again, to describe what our committees focus on. I know, the genesis of our committee was really the work that the planning board did with, the outside consultants and the input of all the residents of the town, was to create the master plan, and then for economic development, and then from that came the revitalization of this committee to actually implement that master plan. So
a suggestion, Lorraine, is you could actually delete the phrase creating equal opportunities for the attraction, development, support and growth of businesses in town, which would leave by developing and implementing a business attraction, retention and marketing program for the town, supporting smart economic growth in keeping with the master plan. I think you become a bit close.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for is, are there revisions to the current mission statement that you think are necessary, John?
So I'm reading item 3, which is you've got
item two is our current statement.
Yeah.
And so
I thought you were going on to the suggested revision. That was what I thought you were dealing with. My apologies. No
problem.
Okay.
So, basically, we have revisions that have been suggested by Heather. We have a current mission statement that was adopted by our committee. So what I wanted to do was just have us discuss, are there any aspects of the revision suggested in number 3 that we feel should be, considered for addition to the current mission statement that we have?
I just have a quick question, because maybe I wasn't totally clear, but when I was looking for the mission statement for our group, depending on where you looked, you got 3 different ones. So whatever we decide to do tonight, that will be the final one, and we'll replace all 3 at the different locations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So what should have been in those three places was the current mission statement. So that's really the starting point of what I'm doing right now. So are you all set, John, with that?
Yeah, so if you're going back to 2, I'm okay with 2.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Tom?
Yeah,
Any thoughts, comments?
I like all the suggestions and the pieces in 3, but I think it's too much for a mission statement. But like Leah said earlier, something about housing and, or Leah, did you mention that? Maybe we could add a small piece from the bottom about housing as well, not just the business attraction.
Paige, do you think and
maybe
how there are different plans that are underway right now. There are other, is that dovetailing really into the overall mission statement?
Or maybe it's in the master plan has that already.
Yeah.
It's worded.
Yeah, my understanding is the master plan incorporated the housing production plan as the housing element, the open space and recreation plan as the open space and sort of natural resources element and so on. So I do think our master plan encompasses those documents, and it's supposed to be a living document. So as the OSRP or the housing production plan is updated, we would incorporate that into our sort of the umbrella of our master plan.
I'm fine the way it is for me.
Okay, so then they're covered. Okay. Mike Stanton?
Yeah, I'm happy with our original mission statement. Those things are all covered in the master plan. Let's just stick to the knitting. I don't like the mission creep here. So I'm happy with our original goals, and we'll address these as they come up when we satisfactorily address each issue as they come before us.
Okay, thank you. Kurt, any additions?
Yeah, I would agree with what Mike just said, really. The less creep we have, the better. I like the way it's written now.
Okay. Catherine?
I would almost suggest deleting the second sentence, in partnership with the local chamber of commerce, in part because I think partnerships can be either implied, or if we want to make it explicit, we could just add that phrase into the first sentence. And I think that the promoting the town as a prime location for new and expanding businesses is already encompassed with implementing a strategy for business attraction, which is articulated in the first sentence. So I think the shorter, the better. And if we can just streamline it, that might be helpful.
So streamlining it just to the elements in the first paragraph?
Yes, and potentially adding in a phrase alluding to partnerships.
So something like by partnering with local, state, and regional agencies?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Catherine.
Yeah, better the better.
Okay. Heather, any other comments?
Nope, I'm good with it as is.
Okay. Leah?
I guess, my only thing, I think it could use the housing rather than just the business attraction. I think if you look at what the group has done over the last year, it's been both housing. It's actually, I would argue, more housing related than business related. So I think it is an important piece. But if the group feels like that is covered under the master plan, I can live with that. Mm-hmm. I like Catherine's suggestion as well about that last piece.
Does anybody see my edits, and does that look okay? I don't know if you can see them well.
Yeah, we can see.
Yep, looks good.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Paige. All right. So we're all set then with that revision. We'll move on to the vision statement. So, you know, the vision statement is really meant to depict where, you know, talk about our future and, you know, what we want to see for Foxboro in the future. In the original vision statement, which I excerpted from Sharon's mission statement, the committee's goal is to enhance quality of life, prosperity in town, meet the needs of the future, and help the town realize its desired economic future. Proposing a little bit more to that, the Foxboro Economic Development Committee will work to enhance the quality of life and prosperity for its citizens, meet the needs of the community both socially and financially, and help the town realize its desired economic future. We have, Heather had provided information also regarding vision. So what I was trying to do was compress it to something short like the mission statement approach. So wanted to ask for feedback on the proposed number 2. John, do you want to start? John Eva?
So we're commenting upon the proposed?
Yes. Number 2.
I'm happy with what you've written there, Lorraine.
Okay. Tom?
I'm fine with that.
Mike Stanton?
Fair enough.
Kurt?
I agree.
Catherine?
I like it.
Heather?
Yep, I'm fine with whatever the group would like.
Leah?
So I'm sure you guys remember with the selectmen meeting, you know, my thought with a vision statement is what we want to be, not how we're going to do it. So my thought is that it should be more worded what we want to be than how we're going to work to do it. But it sounds like the group is good with this one.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I think we'll get these typed up and in the minutes, and I think we can. Do you think that we should bring it back to the Board of Selectmen to review, because they were presented with the original mission statement, and if we're making any tweaks to anything, we could bring it back if you think we should.
I can kind of give my thought. Obviously, I haven't consulted with the board, but I don't think this is something that needs to go to the board. I think this committee, with its voting members, can decide their vision on their own, Lorraine. That's just my thoughts. Paige, do you agree? I think we trust the board and who we've appointed.
Maybe we could just send a memo or something to let
Yeah, but I don't think we need to do like a formal vote or anything.
Yeah, and then that way,
Okay.
just let them know as a courtesy, and then that way, if there's any issues or discussion matters, that it'll come up then.
Yeah, if anything, maybe we can kind of promote the Choose Foxboro website and use it as a kind of ad.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, run it by him. Constructive public notice is always appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the review of the implementation matrix excerpted from the master plan. Paige is going to run us through this. What we did was we sat down the other day and went through the big grid that you all have in your binder and pulled out the areas that were still either in progress or still needed to be addressed, and just threw out some notes as ideas for perhaps a subcommittee could be considered for some of these topics. And Paige is going to just run through it, but I think as we go through it, if you could think about areas that you would want to be interested in participating on a subcommittee. I know we already have the Route 1 subcommittees already in place, so, but there are many other topics in here. And just in general, in the very beginning, when we were first created, we did have a finance group that was consisted of the chair and Bill Keegan, and at the time, Randy Scollins as the finance director. So, you know, any type of financial information that we would need, that group was handling it. And that reminds me, I just wanted to follow up. There was a question at our last meeting about the property classification and valuation statement that was in our binder. And the trending that's happening there, I talked with Bill about that and got clarification. What it means basically is that since the market values of housing are rising so quickly, the burden of the town's taxes falls more to the residential owners than the commercial owners. And what ends up happening is at some point, when the Board of Assessors reviews their recommendation for a tax rate for the town every year, they'll take that into consideration, and sometimes they make an adjustment of the factor that's used to calculate that rate, because you know, as the residential rates are going up, the commercial rates are going down. So sometimes they make an adjustment. So that was some explanation on that record. But anyway, Paige, do you want to give a summary, really, going through here and talking about some ideas about the subcommittees?
Sure. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible, just because I know these matrices get tedious and we've all probably looked at them a few times. Just to give you an overview of what this matrix is, it's the same information that I presented in the binder with the large 11 by 17 copies. What we did is we tried to organize them. Some of the topics were redundant. You know, they appeared in more than one section of the plan, so they kind of got listed under several different headings. So what we tried to do is streamline it a bit. So on this matrix, the first thing is the first category is underway. These are projects that we're currently working on or close to working on. The next main heading has to do with to do or to be determined. Some of those are things we think we want to do. There might be a little question about how we're going to do it, but it's kind of looking for guidance. The third one is an important area, and we might want to jump to this pretty quickly, which is, are these suggestions still a priority for Foxboro? And this group might want to take a look at these topics and sort of provide some guidance on that. And then lastly, the last topic on the second to last page is the action items that we've completed. So if you haven't taken a look at that one, that makes you feel good when you see the things we've gotten down with respect to sewer service and the fire station reuse, restaurants uptown, some housing uptown, the farmers market, thanks to recreation. And so we've really, the town hall being built, Route 1 zoning. So there's been a lot accomplished. So to jump back, one of the first subcommittee ideas that we came up with had to do with the first topic, which is sort of streetscape, pedestrian, and transit. That includes not only that includes mostly uptown stuff like FCBC, which is Foxboro Common Business Collaborative, sort of the wayfinding. So I have some obviously natural ideas of who might be interested in that, but I would think that perhaps an uptown committee might be good for that. The next committee, and it's somewhat related, and I don't know whether there would be overlap. I do feel like Uptown needs its own sort of committee, just like Route 1 has its committee. So maybe that's where we divide it. But I do really hope to, and I wish Dan Krantz was here because he knows that I've been talking to him about working on this. I really do want to try to get a connection, a pedestrian connection from Uptown along the rail line to Patriot Place, Gillette Stadium, and the train station. So that's something I think we might want to take a hard look at. In the master plan, it talks about possibly connecting buses and whatnot. And we have taken a look at that, and the right-of-way layout just is not wide enough to allow a travel way alongside the rail, but certainly it appears to be wide enough to allow a pedestrian pathway, and we think that would be a major amenity. So that is subcommittee number 2 we would recommend, is something to do with the rail trail transit pedestrian connections there.
And
that
Heather,
might be a big one.
While you're on that, has everyone heard the news about the pause in the rail service?
Yeah, I was going to update you on that. So the pilot program, I'm looking at it as good news. When I got the call about this, is that the MassDOT offered to allow Foxboro's pilot to go on to pause. Starting in October, it will pause with the schedule change, and it will resume in May with that schedule change. Obviously, assuming COVID allows the resumption of transit. I could say that transit commuter rail travel system-wide is been at about 8%. So obviously that's not a great time to be doing a pilot. The MassDOT did feel the numbers were improving prior to the shutdown. So they didn't, where we feel fortunate is they aren't canceling the pilot. They're letting us come back and try again. So that is breaking news that came out. I think they voted it Monday at the MassDOT meeting. But that is some news, and we look forward to getting back at it once hopefully things start to get back to normal. So let's keep going. So those are the two the two subcommittees we talk about. There's a lot of discussion in the plan and the implementation about transit, and GATRA Go has been playing a big role there. We also assume that will be coming back. It was funded prior to the shutdown, and there was a lot of state and regional support for that GATRA Go transit program. So we feel quite positive that this is going to go well. Under Route 1. Route 1 already has a subcommittee. So again, we're up to 3 subcommittees now. It'd be Uptown, Rail Trail, and then Route 1. And now coming back over to, so this is where it gets redundant and to be determined. This is where, so the state forest tie-in, one of the things we want to do is connect Uptown with the state forest. I know we've looked at that in a cursory manner. Mill Street's really narrow, and throwing sharrows on there wasn't necessarily our best idea, but we do want to try to create that connection. And that might, again, that's something that we think the Uptown Committee could work towards. So there is overlap. You'll see as you go through these, some of these, even under the same topic headings, one might go in the rail trail bucket while the other one goes in the Route 1 bucket, while the other one goes in the Uptown bucket. The next category on page 3, I apologize, I just realized I'm not.
Yeah, I think that's the TV feed page, so we might want to keep.
Yeah, sorry, I'm multitasking. Feel free to remind me if I forget, because I was looking at my hard copy. So let me go down. So I just went through these. This is the first subcommittee, Uptown, and over here would be Rail Trail Subcommittee. We're talking about transit, the Route 1, wastewater management, whatnot. This is the whole discussion about tying in the state forest, developing a bike network. Again, that would go probably under the Uptown. Okay, on to the next one. Business assistance. So this is something, there was quite a bit of discussion about business assistance, from small business initiatives to business gardening, and how we present ourselves as a community. So we thought that this might be a good another subcommittee for real business development, not just Uptown, but for the whole community. And we could really be creative in how we want to approach this and come up with some ideas to support businesses, whether they're new businesses, whether existing businesses. But we wanted to sort of do that. Now, when I say see also next table, I'm going to skip ahead to that to just show you sort of where some of the questions come up. So here's some of the ones that we weren't 100% sure on. In the master plan, it talked about an arts center or youth service business Uptown. I know we would all love that. And I guess the question is, you know, who would do this? Is this private? Is this the town? Is it still supported? You know, how is it viable? Same with the question of a higher education training center. I think most communities would love this. Is that something that we, the EDC, want to prioritize and work towards? And then the third one was talk about higher education institutes. So it's kind of a little overlapping, but these are the questions we had around business attraction of, you know, do we want to get into specific attraction? These all were called out in the master plan here. So they were discussed previously. Obviously, they were important at some time. And then here's where we get into the more detail about business support, economic gardening, to develop a support program to advance the growth and development of local businesses, including many home-based, talking about instituting a business visitation program. So again, I guess the question on this would be, if we did have a subcommittee, perhaps that group could take a hard look at all of these recommendations that we do think are important, and or, you know, revisit whether they fit into the scheme still. Going right down here to store and building improvements, that's a grant program. Oftentimes a town would have to fund that. You know, consider establishing a local fund for sign and facade rehabilitation. So again, these are sort of implementation items that get put in master plans. They're great ideas, and I'm not saying anything negative against them, but it's all about whether the community is going to prioritize them. So I think this subcommittee would be looking at that type of information and whether we want to pursue that. So going back up to that next table, utility and infrastructure, we're still working on you know, making sure that utilities are sufficient. One of the main keys to the master plan is the growth node approach. And you'll see later, actually, I'm going to just jump into it because this is really important. The master plan is very specific about the growth nodes. It talks about the 4 growth nodes: Chestnut Green, downtown, which we call Uptown, Route 1, and then the South Route 140, Foxboro Boulevard area. Those are the growth nodes for the town of Foxboro. And that's where the communities wants to grow. Now, in the master plan, it went so far as to suggest that transfer of development rights or community service utility areas would be implemented. And in broad brush, what that means is you'd basically be allowing, you know, more intense development within the growth nodes in exchange for perhaps preserving some in other areas. You'd be basically trading off development rights from one section of town to the other. That's pretty sophisticated. We don't see it a ton in Massachusetts, but it is all, there's a lot of discussion about this in the master plan. So I think, you know, our group might need to take a hard look at whether this is realistic, whether this is something we want to pursue. You know, we've been doing uptown development, and, you know, I don't know that the folks living uptown would feel the same way, that they're going to take, you know, a bulk of the development and allow the more rural areas to not. But that is what the planning principles and the master plan kind of call for right now. So I think the group is going to want to hone in on that and see if that's really where the town's going, and you know, what we want to do.
Hey, can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Why is growth node 4 crossed out, South Route 140? Did that go, or is that just nothing?
No, that was sort of like feeling a sense of accomplishment in that area has been since the master plan was written, that area has been redeveloped pretty well, you know, with the rotary being built there, or the roundabout, whatever we call it now, and the redevelopment of Foxboro furniture in that plaza. So we kind of felt that area was in decent shape. So we kind of X that out, feeling a sense of accomplishment.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody, I've been rambling for a while. Does anybody want to jump in and say anything?
You might want to think about, I noticed you had 9J is consider adoption of the Community Preservation Act. That's, as you know, every couple of years that comes up and it's landed on the selectmen's table, and we've all gone to seminars and stuff about it. We might want to consider, if we ever decide to try to go ahead with that, that would probably need to be its own subcommittee, because that's a really big deal and takes a lot to get it done. So just food for thought, if the town decides they do want to do it, it would need its own subcommittee.
I would agree with that. All right, well, let me continue on and see if there's another. Then the final, jumping back up here, I think. Yeah, here we go. I think the last suggested subcommittee, in case I'm wrong, is the EDC website. We have a decent website going. I think the bones are there, and I've been trying really hard. Thanks to Sandra in the IT department. I think I've mentioned her. We have the agenda on there. We update it with the regional destination study. So we're trying to keep it somewhat active, but we know it could be more. It could be a little more active in the sense of providing information on real-time development opportunities, land available. We could start coming up with priority development areas and that sort of thing. So that might be something that this subcommittee wants to dig into and make our economic development website just a little bit more. I'll be honest, I just don't have time to make it much more than it is, and I'm not even geared towards that. So, but I will say it's, it could be something really helpful as a tool, especially as we get into this, not going to town hall age as much. People just go on the computer and they don't really want to research. So they're going to just go online and look to see what communities have. So, so that's, I think, the final one.
I have a question for Leah.
Yes.
Leah, at the board of select persons, has there been any discussion about what the town should do as we try to bring the town out of COVID? Is there any special measures that are being considered? And if so, are there any which the EDC should also consider?
So, Paige, let me know if you agree, but I think right now the focus is on restaurants. I'd say the immediate focus. There's a call on Friday, actually, with the restaurants to basically say it's with the inspections department, Bill's office. Paige, your office involved in that as well, to kind of say what challenges are you having and how can we help you?
Yes.
So I would say, John, that's probably the most, imminent focus. Obviously, there's other things like testing. There's a machine that the fire department has that they're waiting on test kits right now that will be one of only one, I believe, in the immediate area that will have immediate rapid testing, flu clinics. There's a lot of things like that. But I'd say, for the focus of this group, it would be a lot of restaurant focus.
What I was therefore wondering is whether business assistance item 8 needs to be expanded. Because we've got a developer program of small business initiatives. Do we need to consider that we're dealing in a slightly different environment than what was at the time this was originally put together?
Yeah, when Paige develop a program of small business, I think, in my opinion, it's more about preservation than initiative right now.
Which therefore gets to add something to reflect the current environment.
So like change A to develop a program of small business initiative and preservation?
Yes.
Just adding that word helps.
Yeah, it really does, because I think that's our immediate focus. If any business closes, whether it's on Route 1, Patriot Place, Uptown, trying to replace that business now is going to be much different. There's not going to be a lot of new businesses coming in looking to take that risk right now.
Because we don't want the EDC to be seen to operate oblivious of the reality of the world today.
Yeah. So that would be, are you talking about section 4, economic gardening, develop a support program to advance the continuation, growth? I'm sorry, I forgot the word that you just used, Leah.
Number 8 is for small business initiatives.
I think it's section 8, and it's preservation, initiatives and preservation.
Okay.
That should be paramount in our mind. Otherwise, we end in a spiral which we can't recover from.
Okay.
And I hope we get the support of the Board of Select Persons on that measure, Leah.
Sorry, was that a question or a statement? It was just a little muffled.
I hope we would get the support of the Board of Select Persons to help us with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just going to
I
speak
hope
to
it could also be a topic of their next meeting.
Yeah, I think Friday's meeting actually really speaks to that. Paige, maybe if you can
Right.
talk a little bit more about that particular meeting.
Sure. So that's our last item on the agenda, but let's jump ahead to it. So Friday so here's what happened. The governor extended the deadline. Originally, the outdoor dining and the allowance to serve alcohol in these outdoor dining areas were going to expire on November 1st. The governor last week extended it for at least 60 days after the state of emergency, so at least a couple more months. So we started thinking of that, and I had a very grand idea that we could. I got all the departments together and said, okay, let's come up with a spec. If someone's going to put a tent up, how do they heat it? What do they do? I learned very quickly that there's nothing simple about this, and that there's no standard spec. So at that point, that's when we all agreed that let's try to get ahead of this, and we sent out an email to all the restaurants in town. We got the list from the Board of Health, asking them to come to this meeting at 10:30 on Zoom. Friday morning to start brainstorming and or to hear what the concerns are, just to start being creative. I mean, the city of Chicago is offering $5,000 for sort of a reward for the most creative idea for outdoor dining. Little things like not using metal furniture because metal furniture conducts cold and it feels really extra cold. One thing that was disheartening to look at all these great creative strategies was the costs. And obviously our businesses aren't really in a place right now to carry costs. Again, I'm not sure the town's in the place to help with that. So that's the hard thing. We don't want to make it seem that we can really fix every problem, but if there's a way within our regulatory process or there's some way, we are willing. I did want to share with you, let me just see if I can find it. I did get an email from a business owner saying, and I think it's a great idea, Foxboro is reaching out to all the restaurants. I would like to submit a few questions ahead of the meeting so I don't slow the meeting down. 1, is Foxboro willing to rebate license fees for the 3 months that we were shut down by the state? 2, how about waiving the town's % of meal and liquor tax? 3, lowering all license fees for 2021. So those are the type of questions being asked by our businesses. I did forward those off to administration. I don't know that it's as easy as yeses in any, a lot of that is unfortunately probably encumbered by financial restrictions. I don't know the answers yet, but I wanted everybody to be aware of sort of the tenor and some of the concerns there. And, again, unfortunately, I think there's a lot we could do. I just don't know. We've talked about whether we could do, some great outdoor dining on the common and allow, we could get state funding and buy a big tent with heaters and whatnot. But then folks said, and that's partially why we're meeting with them to see, would anybody really do it? Because we're not really sure that folks would even really do it. So we don't want to go through all this and waste people's time or energy, but we are trying to see if there's a creative way to help.
Tents, heaters, also the fire issue too, so the fire department, life safety, all that's going to get involved too.
Yeah, it's a loser.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. And then my other great idea was I read that in order to break the wind to get these beautiful shrubs, tall shrubs, which in hindsight are probably $1,000 a pop. But then unfortunately under the COVID regulations, breaking the wind and stopping the wind is not what you want to do. That you have the 50, you can only have 2 walls covered. So if you cover a 3rd wall with shrubs, that's in effect blocking sort of the COVID guidelines. So the layers are great. And, everybody's doing the best they can. It's amazing the difference. The Port Lakeview Pavilion, you try to hold a wedding, it changes everything. Because the minute you're starting to do entertainment or anything, it's no longer a restaurant and you're down to 50 people. That includes employees. That's why we're having trouble with entertainment. You can't really do it. So there's just a lot of layers. There's no easy answer, but we are interested. But I feel like absent money, I'm not sure what's really going to help at this point. And I don't know that the town has the ability to assist in that regard. So back to subcommittees, Lorraine, right?
Yeah, so I have notes here. So far we've got FCBC, Rail Trail, the website, business development assistance, and Community Preservation Act potentially.
Did you get Route 1?
So,
that's already there.
Route 1, right, and finance. So maybe we could send out an email to everybody with those listed, and people could, you know, get back to you with their interests of which committees they'd be interested in being involved in. And then at our next meeting, we could establish those subcommittees and have them work to prioritize the different topics that would be applicable in theirs. Does that make sense? Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds logical to me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Lorraine, just to clarify, so how does subcommittees work with this group? Just for those that don't, I mean, are there a bunch of extra meetings, or how is it? I know how Route 1 has done it, but I wasn't really here for some of the other ones.
So essentially there would be a lead person, and the group would establish their meeting schedule themselves and then report back to our committee periodically. So in the beginning, maybe, you know, once the groups are designated, we could, you know, dedicate a meeting just to the first reports to get feedback from the groups as to what their thoughts are on, you know, projects related to their topic.
Great, thank you.
Does that sound okay? All right. And then I think from that page, is that where the goals will come from at that point?
Yeah, I think our thought, or your thought on that, was that getting more familiar with the sort of all this implementation stuff, and sort of having the groups, like a lot of what I read, as we know, like community service areas and transfer development rights, you know, like I feel like the group almost needs to refine whether those are still sort of active EDC goals, and then sort of refine what the plan is as to like priorities. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my thought. It seems like we have a laundry list, and now it's almost like vetting them and seeing what's going to come out for the next phase. Oh, that's just the thought I think that we were leaning towards, but I think it's open for discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So should we move on to COVID resiliency?
Sure. We kind of talked about that a bit. Again, we're just looking for brainstorming ideas. Today, there was a meeting with the consultant who's taken the lead on the CBDG Grant, which is for micro enterprises. Those are 5 or fewer employees. Unfortunately, we learned today that funding does not, by federal government requirements, will not extend to nonprofits. So that was a real bummer. But we did have a bunch of Foxboro residents on the call. So that was interesting. And at this point, we're advising anybody who thinks they might be remotely interested in it to go ahead and apply. You will get vetted out if you're not eligible. Don't worry. But it's certainly, we want, you know, the money is there, and we want to spend it. It's $90,000 to be shared among small businesses. So, and it could be used for rent, whatnot, and it's an actual grant. So, but it is income based. There is probably extensive documentation, I'm not going to lie. And it is for 5 or fewer fewer employees. And from what I heard today, that's based on the date of application. So unfortunately, if you got down to like 3 employees, but now you're back up to 7, you're not eligible. So, which kind of to me made me feel like now businesses will just lay people off temporarily. I don't know if they would ever really do that, but it was so disheartening to hear that. But again, that's a requirement of the grant. It's not stipulated by us. Also, the other tough one is part-time employees count as 1. So it's not like you could take 2 part-time and make them 1 full-time equivalent. Each part-time counts as a head count. So it really is somewhat limiting. We also, with that grant, got $9,000 for the food pantry. So I've been dealing with Cheryl Hickson over there, and actually the YMCA as well. So we're trying to work quite cooperatively with them to try to really help the community for the $9,000. We are pounding the pavement for other grants. I'm so aware that there's a dearth of them. 5 employees, that business, it's great for those businesses, but we have so many people out there with more than 5, and we're not seeing much organized coming down right now. I think, unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait sort of see how the election plays out. I don't know that, but it's just my hunch is, right now things are a little volatile, and we don't really see the budget getting organized yet. Maybe at the state level, but I know they're waiting for the feds. So we're kind of all in limbo, unfortunately, waiting to see how this is all going to play out. But we are not yet hearing funny. Catherine, you're in the business. Are you hearing anything more promising from funding that could help local businesses or local support?
I have not really heard anything too promising, unfortunately. I'm in the same boat.
So that's pretty much it. But we are, as the survey, so I'm late, I admit. Heather and Lorraine can attest to this. We met last week with a little group to come up with a survey. I started working on it today, but I'm in this class and I was trying to do 2 things at once, but it's a procurement class for 3 days. I don't know, Catherine, if you know it, but I got to pass this test tomorrow. So I realized I really needed to focus on this class as much as I wanted to work on the survey. So I'm going to get the draft out by Friday to you guys. It's a little harder when I was doing it. We had a lot in there. We're trying to keep it not too long, trying to get right into the appropriate information. Stay tuned. So we are planning on sending out a survey to all the community businesses just to sort of hear how they're doing and what they need without implying that we can fix their problems. So kind of where we're at. But anybody has any ideas? If anybody's interested in listening in on the meeting on Friday at 10:30, I could send you the Zoom link. It's up to you, but we're trying. And I can say that all our departments, inspections, Board of Health, fire, police. I mean, I called a meeting at like 3:00 Thursday, and I had everybody in that room at 10:30 last Friday morning, because we are all just racking our brains to try to find a way to help everybody. And it's been pretty great, the coordination. Unfortunately, the challenges are still there regardless of the coordination.
Okay. So will you send out the Zoom link to everybody?
I will.
That? Okay, thanks, Paige. Anyone have any other topics for our next meeting?
Do you want to shoot for October 21st as our next meeting?
Sure.
How do people feel
Great.
Zoom went versus us all being in that room? This is kind of an experiment because it was so crowded in there and it was really hard felt like we were all, but Zoom.
I prefer the Zoom.
I'm fine with the Zoom unless at some point in time we have a topic that we would want to engage the public. I think you're less apt to get people from the general public to Zoom in, but I mean, unless we have a topic that we're looking for that, I'm fine with the Zoom.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night, all.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Run by.
Thanks for coming.
Somebody moves to adjourn, right? Thanks. Bye.